Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America and Black and White, where we discuss issues that are happening in our communities and how we can solve them. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Chad Ross. Chad is an Atlanta native in his mid 30s. He attends a private university in North Carolina and lived in New York for a few years before returning home to Atlanta a few years ago. He's worked in various aspects of the fashion industry, personally and professionally. During his teens, he was introduced to the ballroom scene via his high school sweetheart and had fun and layered experience for the time he spent in it. He's currently he does creative projects in his leisure time and planning to build on that in the upcoming years. Being a certain type of man and being gay has been such an edifying and arduous process, but ultimately one that has made him the individual that he is today. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Mr. Chad Ross.
Hi Charles, how are you?
I'm great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio?
Not necessarily. I definitely since you stated I do creative projects currently in my leisure time. That's mainly because after having moved back to Atlanta, the industry that I was working in, which is more like corporate fashion in New York, it
Mhm.
just doesn't exist here yet. There aren't a lot of major retailers like Saks um or Neiman's or Tiffany, anybody that's based here on a corporate level. So I currently work in like state government
Okay.
full time as my current job, but I still do try to stay creatively linked with my friends as well as doing my own projects.
Okay. So, how do you find being a creator like you are and working with the state government? How does that work?
Um, I think that what I could say for me being a creative person, like it's come something that in moving back to Atlanta, I've come to realize through kind of discussion with my mother and just being introspective. It's cathartic for me. It's something that I have to do to feel healthy, to be functional. And I think it's just in a sense kind of maybe a variant on how everyone says, you should have something that you enjoy doing outside of work, even if you enjoy doing your job. It just so happens for me, it happens to be creative, and it's something that a way in which I have to express or that helps me as a person kind of be the best functional version of myself. But it's
Okay.
interesting. It's interesting. It's
Okay.
definitely, I would say, it's a break. It's a relief. Because my creative process in general, I only create when I feel it. I only create it when it's organic for me and I'm inspired by something. I don't necessarily have a lot of shoots or do a lot of work often just because it's not something I can just create. I can just generate when I want to on a whim.
Mhm. Well, so tell us this: what inspired you to pursue a career in fashion?
So as a child, my mother literally every weekend we would literally go to the outlets. And when I say outlets, we would start in Commerce and then we would go to Chattanooga and
Mhm.
then literally we would hit every like mall outlet on the way back. So a
Oh,
large part of my life and my childhood has been clothing, fashion and shopping. And it's something that I guess you could say I associated with just my mom, a good time, positive, you know what I mean, vibes or whatever.
mhm.
Um, and then also as I got older, it just became something I kind of just started getting into in my own type of way, if you will. I have this discussion with a lot of my friends who are around my age about like our generation we were coming up was, all about individuality and love you for you and
Yeah.
the color you wore meant if you wore black, you were depressed. If you wore oversized clothes, literally our how we dressed was more so an extension and a representation of our person more so than what we put on or how much money we had or a social status, if you will. It was
Mhm.
much more personal, a connection. So just that, so to speak. And yeah, I actually was like a childhood model for a while for Rich's Macy's. So I did commercials and posters and kind of also having that exposure, the early aspect of it, as well. Just kind of was like, oh, that's something that you can do, or oh, that's interesting. So yeah.
So, as you got more and more into fashion, can you tell us, like, how did that give you the ability to be the individual that you are? Because you mentioned in your bio about being gay. Was that
Mhm.
something that was hard for you to be expressive, or did this help you to express yourself that much more?
So I have had the privilege and the honor to be raised by Joy, my mother. And my mother literally, from about maybe me being 6 or 7, used to always say, the same reason people love you is the same reason some people will hate you. And the sooner that you can learn to accept that, the easier your life will be.
Mhm.
And of course, that had no real type of context or meaning to me until you get out in the world and you start experiencing people and you started getting exposed to life. And then also, she was always just very big on me being comfortable in my own skin. She always tried to be or was very supportive of me just as a person. So, to be very honest, I've always been me 100%. The way I like to express it to my friends is it's always appropriate to be who you are, but who you are is not appropriate for every environment or every interaction. There's a way to be yourself fully and be sincere in your existence and your interaction with people, but still be acknowledging that yes, you have a right to be who you are, live your life, but you also have acknowledgement that you are not living here amongst yourself and by yourself, and that other people have that same right as well, and that we should be cognizant and acknowledging and coherent of it in our existence. So I would just say getting into fashion, it was just an interesting experience. If I can just give you a quick little kind of background, I was kind of hanging out with somebody when I came, kind of like after college back in Atlanta, who happened to be an account manager for Jezebel magazine,
Mhm.
and we were just having conversation literally one day over drinks,
Mhm.
and I just kind of brought up my interest in fashion, and he's like, "Oh, I have a friend who's a designer from New York. You all should meet." And I was like, "Okay." So he connected us. That person's name is Shaka King. I went down to Shaka's studio and had a conversation with him. And I've always felt that communication and honesty are a form of respect.
Mhm.
So I'm never going to lie to someone or try to inflate something specifically about myself in general, because it's not going to benefit me or you in the short or the long term, right? So I
Exactly.
just told him like, hey, I have no professional experience doing this. I just know that I have a gift, and I just need an opportunity to share and show my gift. And so he was like, I have a shoot tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. Show up. And I was like, okay. So I show up. We're doing the shoot. I think we got maybe to the second or the third look, and I'm very expressive. If you can't tell, my face generally tells on me if my mouth doesn't tell you first. Um, and so I kind of made a look, and he was like, "What's that about?" And I said, "Well, it just looks a little dated." He was like, "Okay, so what would you do?" And he literally let me kind of lead styling on the rest of the shoot. And it ended up being a 4-page spread and a cover for Obvious Magazine in their fashion edition. And he gave me credit.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so the first shoot I ever actually really did professional shoot, I got actual printed credits, and it was actually printed in a legitimate fashion publication. And Shaka King to this day is still my mentor. He's still my uncle. He's now my uncle, I guess you could say. And also moving to New York, I had certain goals when I went there. And I linked up with people. My homegirl Kristen, who's a professional background singer, my homeboy Jamal King, who's working for the Washington Post currently. Salim Tyree Singleton the third is actually the person who encouraged me to start Black Kimchi and pursue just being creative, and
Mhm.
really gave me exposure to just fashion. And like, to go back to your point about blending in, like I've always been a very color and prints and all of that. And he invited me to this, I think it was a Christmas party for Udo Sprites and Barth, who's like a world-renowned photographer. He was managing his space in Chelsea at the time. And came after work, and I had my little blue shirt and my little Ellie Tahari camo and my Kohan boots. I think I'm stepping, and I never forget. I walked into the studio, and he literally ran up to me, kind of pulled me to the corner, and he said, "You look really nice, but you have on a lot of color. You have on a lot of color." And I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of my thing, friend." Um, And so he was like, and he said it to me this way. He was like, I would never tell anyone what they have to do or what you have to do. But you told me that what you want to do is be in certain circles and run in certain scenes. And this
Mhm,
is what it is. And it was basically, he was telling me up there, it's very kind of like white, off-white, black, gray, very muted, very monochromatic. But
mhm,
the thing that he expressed to me is like, you have style. So you can be black and still, you can still dress in all black and still do yourself and do that. And so I think having him as a guide, if you will, and almost kind of like a peer and a mentee, it really kind of made the transition of still feeling comfortable to be an individual within that industry specifically.
mhm.
Because he kind of guided me and gave me, some insight to it, and in a sense taught me certain ways to still be myself, but still do the things and accomplish things that I wanted to accomplish. Sorry
Okay.
for being so like verbose, but yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. That's wonderful. That I mean, we like that because these are the things that I think people out in the audience, especially those that may be a little bit more on the introverted side, can learn, in being themselves that it's okay to express who you are and just be who you are. But a lot of people aren't there yet. And so I
Mhm.
definitely appreciate, you can, I mean, there's no time limit. So, we're doing this because it's wonderful. Um, can you share some key milestones in your fashion career?
Okay, I would say one of them was I ended up incidentally styling a show during New York Fashion Week.
Mhm.
Went as I was going as a guest to attend the show. My friend Salim, who I was telling you about, was the space that he was managing. One of his friends, Edwin, was doing a show there.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny because when I got to the studio, Salim didn't answer the door. There was someone else who answered the door, and we had a very passionate exchange, if you will.
Okay.
Um, I said that and shared that part to say that the person I got into it with was Edwin. It was the designer.
Mhm.
um, and after kind of provided some clarity, I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you," And so I'm sitting down. I'm think I'm cute, leg crossed. I'm cocktailing, and my friend runs up to me and says, "Hey, friend, can I talk to you for a sec?" I'm like, "Sure." So he's like, I need you to do what you do," and I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, I need you to style the show," and I was like, and at first I thought maybe he meant assist, but I literally ended up like doing the order, figuring out what the final walk was like, doing the lineup, doing finishings. Having been kind of around Shaka and being seasoned for whatever reason, I had my finishing trimmers, which are just these small, almost like garden clippers, but you're
Mhm.
just using the cut off phrase and make sure that everything looks clean. So
Mhm.
having that experience was really cool. Um,
Wow.
I would say also one of my good long term friends here, Julian King in Atlanta, who actually manages Control Magazine.
Mhm.
And coming back here, and when I started working for the state, just kind of wanting to do some creative work and some styling. Excuse me, I wanted to just like was reaching out to people and trying to do something. And so I kind of did some freelance freestyling for him and did some shoots with June's Diary was one of them. I know we did a shoot with Maya. So just being able to, meet certain people and have certain kind of like personal experiences. Cause I think a lot of times for people, I've done some music videos. I've done some kind of other like runway fashion. I like shoots because I feel like shoots are a way for a stylist to most sincerely and most kind of transparently show what our aesthetic is. What is our perspective? What are you trying to present? What makes you unique?
Mhm.
And it allows you to more, I guess, in an easier format to kind of develop relationships with people. Because on set, it's just going to be maybe you, the photographer, maybe the designer, the models, makeup, hair people, and you're going to be working in literally physical close proximity to each other. So you're
Mhm.
able to kind of better foster and nurture relationships rather than if I'm at a show and it's 20 models, it's multiple stylists. There's just a lot of extra stuff going on. So I would say that was one of them. I will also say honestly, I would say starting Black Kimchi, my Instagram, really starting kind of that creative journey. And my first shoot I did in Brooklyn, it was with Lee Andrew. He is an artist and photographer in Brooklyn. All of my shoots are of my own concept. I don't follow shows, trends. I don't follow fashion houses. I always feel the way to best be yourself and be unique is to be you,
Hmm.
and not trying to be something else, but
Hmm.
just being. And they generally have some type of personal connection. So that first shoot was called Alterations.
Okay.
It was literally based and conceived around kind of volatile, kind of traumatic part of my childhood and transition of that through kind of getting older. And it was done through color, lighting, and just some other things. Um, and that was also a milestone because the photographer actually sold one of those pictures, I think, for like 300, 400 some dollars.
Oh,
I didn't get none of that,
okay.
but you know, it was it's still cool because it's like you create, and when people something that you do that you love or that you're passionate about or that is because when you create to me you're always giving a part of yourself or sharing a part of yourself, and for people to see something monetary in that and willing to spend money on it, it's like, oh, okay, wow, like it has meaning and substance to someone or something other than me.
Right.
It was something there for someone else. So I would say those are kind of the biggest ones. Really starting kind of Black Kimchi, and doing a fashion shoot, doing a styling fashion show for New York Fashion Week, and just my relationship with Shaka. Because, like I said, I
Hmm.
think we met like 2012,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, we talk about fashion, but I tell people all the time, even though he's kind of like my fashion mentor, we definitely talk more about life than anything else. And just to kind of incorporate, sexuality into my response to your question, we've had conversations and he was like, I'm sure I could have had other opportunities or more or different opportunities had he been more of a finger snapping fairy. And that's just my verbiage, not yours. Um, but had he been more effeminate, and at the end of the day, he was like, I'm 5, 6 feet something. This is who I am. And
Mhm.
it was more sincere. It was more important for him to be himself than to acquire or be at a certain point in life. And
Right.
to look at him as an independent designer, a Black independent designer, a man,
Hmm.
and to have been able to be and continue to be self-sufficient for 20, 30 plus years
Hmm.
is amazing to me. Like he didn't have to go mainstream, like Telfar, or even have necessarily get himself into commercial stores to still be successful and make a name for himself. And like he's had a boutique in DC, he's run incubators for JCPenney's and Macy's in DC, and done fashion weeks all over the world. So, I think having him as a mentor and having him as a tangible physical reference in my life for fashion and being a Black male also made it easier to be like, and also my friend like Salim and other people, like my friend Jamal, who are maybe in other industries or other fields, but they're very sincere, honest, and true to who they are, and that is a part of their brand, if you will, or who they are as professionals. So I think having those direct references makes it easier to do or be something when you know that it's possible because you see it every day.
Oh, well, I hope you can make that connection and get Shaka here so we can connect and I can get him on the show.
I will throw that out there to him.
I would be much appreciated. You
I very
know,
much will. Mhm.
So tell us about your brand, Kimchi. You say when it started. Tell us, what is that about?
So I came up with the name because I'm part Korean. My mother was born in Seoul, South Korea. She was adopted and raised in South Georgia and Albany. And so it has always been important to me to acknowledge that part of my culture, my heritage, and my person. And it just kind of came out in my creating that I've always been big on like mythology and anime, um, just from color references and storylines and things. So I came up with Black Kimchi, it's kind of spiced Korean cabbage. I also have somewhat of some may say a zesty personality. Um, and just so I tried to just mold the two. And it was really just a rebranding for me. And it meant more of a polished look. It meant more of a professional look. Um, all pictures, even the ones I do with like my phone that aren't maybe like professional studio shoots or done with a professional photographer. There's always not, I wouldn't say a concept, but a story.
Hmm.
Um, I literally have the ability, if you will, when I'm getting ready to do a shoot, I can literally I know the image that I'm wanting to see. I already see it in my head.
You
So
can
what
vis-
I'm literally trying to do with the camera is catch what I already see in my head, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, and Shaka said that he's always felt something. He felt what has always made me unique as a stylist or a model is I always evoke an emotion. He says every time I look at your pictures, I feel something. Um, and I think that that matters. I think people only are drawn to images because not necessarily of the aesthetics, but more so the emotion or the experience that they have with the picture, whether it be even just admiration of like, whoa, I would have never thought to do that, or whoa, that's a cool, interesting picture, or if it's something that they see and they connect to it. So for me, it's kind of been about doing like professional shoots, but I have linked with someone where I'm planning to develop a website. um, the concept for it will really be like a purchasable online gallery. So basically,
Okay.
I will curate all of the shoots that I've done, the professional shoots. You'll be able to go through and view them and just look at them if you would like. But you would also be able to basically print copies, and prints of them and order them as well.
As long
Um,
as they purchase, they're on your site.
yep. It would all be like a two in one. So you can just go and view them if you will, but it kind of like I said, it'd be like a purchasable art gallery, if you will, photo gallery.
Okay. Well, that's actually wonderful. So, so is it that you're doing just the print of photos, or are you doing other things?
So I have a couple other things that I'm working on, like conceptually. I would like to do um, a video, kind of a mini video series I've been working on, and writing scripting for. Um, there's also some audio that I'm thinking about doing. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of my peers, also my superiors, as I like to call them, my elders, and I feel that part of my way of having acknowledgement and appreciation for being afforded a day is to try to do and be something better than I was the day before. It's how I like to express it. It's not to say that I fall short. It's not to say that I don't fail. It's not to say that I don't all, I may always hit my marks, but I do wake up every day and make that concerted effort. Um, and just things that I've maybe said to people, maybe experiences or advice that has been shared with me, that I've given to other people, it has been responded to. I wouldn't just say positively, but it's been something that really touched people, or was able to improve or affect their lives. So I've been trying to find an effective and efficient way for me to be able to um, share that with people. And I also feel like as a creative, and I'm sure you understand this, just trying to find various ways to share your person with people, but in a way that's effective for them. And that's also not a waste of your time, like something that they actually are interested in. Because just because something has value doesn't mean that people are going to grab onto it, or it has value to them, if you will.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, so I am kind of working on some things, but I would like to do a video series. I was actually having planned to do it with a good friend of mine who actually got her degree in videography and all these things. But she moved to South Carolina for reasons that were much more important. So I have a good friend here in Atlanta that I probably reach out to. Dee is just booked and busy, and she's doing major work. And I'm the type of person with all my friends. By the way, I just want to let everybody know this chain, Shaka King, is made by my mentor. This hat is Fly Mod Clothing. It's my friend Oren in New York. Even the artwork behind me is by some of my friends. So I definitely believe in supporting people. And I say that to say I don't like to waste their time. It's like I tell them, just because you're my friend doesn't mean that I'm not going to pay you what you should be paid, or maybe sometimes more.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I'm going to just reach out to you just because I can reach out to you. It's your business. It's how you pay your bills. And
Hmm.
it's a part of being professional and just respecting people's time as an adult. So
Yes.
there are some things that I definitely plan to do next year. I'm making some personal changes in my life to kind of be able to free up more money and kind of restart some things, if you will, personally. But definitely, I would say look out coming January, February. I do have a deposit on the shoot, a deposit on a photo shoot with Prime, who's an amazing young photographer here. He does personal photography for young baby Tate, the musical artist. But he also does a lot of he's been starting to do a lot of commercial work as well, and he kind of runs very, very heavy in the social scene with people, and starting to catch a name.
Hmm.
So he and I have a deposit down. So I have a shoot kind of lined up. Um, I haven't booked the date with him yet because, as I told you, I have to like be inspired, and I've literally Charles gone between like 6 concepts and nothing was sticking like grits. So I just let it slide down the wall, if you will. So yeah.
Well, you know something, that creative process is something that once you have it, and you know when it's right, and you know what it is. And like
Mhm.
sometimes it could be like, yeah, you could be all in on this thing, and you can run up to like maybe 3 weeks prior, and it's like, no, this ain't right. You need to change it.
Right.
That's just part of the creative process.
Right.
But so just an understanding though, it sounds like what you're saying is besides doing the art, which are your photos, that you're also with that you're doing script writing and some other part of acting production. Is
Mhm.
that a part of Kimchi, or is that something that you're just working and collaborating with someone to do that?
It's all for me. I was literally just telling our friends, you get those. I feel like sometimes God speaks to me, and
Mhm.
when it's Him talking, it's not you feeling something.
Okay.
And something has really just been telling me to invest in my creative this year,
Mhm.
and to be more like I tell people, like I want to be more serious about myself. I feel like when it comes sometimes to doing things for other people or helping other people with things, I'm very fervent in that. I'm very like on top of making sure that they have what they need and their readiness. But then when it comes to me, it's like, oh, I can do that later, or I can do that, so I'm just trying to be more, have more follow through and more diligence. But no, all of it is really kind of trying to, like I say, a couple of things are really kind of trying to throw things out there and see what sticks. Because like I said, some things are only good in concept, not to say that they're not good concepts.
Mhm.
Um, and the website is definitely something specifically for my brand, but it's all for me. It's just kind of me trying different mediums and different ways of kind of expressing and doing creative outside of photography.
Okay. Well, look, you definitely, we definitely have to stay in touch and connected, because I definitely love to know about this process and this growth that you're going to have going on, because
Mhm.
I think it's something that the people most likely, and I'm sure, are going to want to know what's the latest and the greatest with Mr. Ross.
Thank you.
Um, can you tell us how do you stay updated with the latest fashion trends?
So I always feel like fashion is what you buy and style is what you do with what you have to wear. So
Mhm.
I've always been more of like a style person. Um, so when I was in the ballroom scene very actively, Tyra Mugler, who I believe goes by Dominique Jackson, is her girl name, who was on Pose. She was
Okay.
Electra Bunder.
Yes.
She was one of my grandmothers in the scene, when
Okay.
I was in the ballroom scene. And I
Mhm.
remember she and I talking one night on the phone, and we were talking about fashion.
Mhm.
And she was telling me that she said, I don't buy clothes to go from season to season. I buy clothes to go from year to year.
All right.
And I was like, "Hmm." And so she was saying, there are certain staples you should have in your closet. She's like, do you have really good pair of blue jeans? Do you have a really nice, she's a woman, like, you have a really nice black dress? Do you have a really good pea coat? Do you have a really good bomber? Do you have really good white, just certain things. And I was like, oh, I never thought about it like that. And so literally maybe around like 30, 31, I went through my closet while I was in New York and I just purged. I had about 2 suitcases and 2 track bags of clothes. I
Mhm.
went to Buffalo Exchange and just got rid of it all. And
Mm.
I said, from here on out, I'm not buying anything if I don't love it. I want to basically be building a wardrobe for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's kind of how I've been doing. So there are certain things I bought, like I bought a pair of shoes called Moose. They
Mhm.
were basically a collaboration between New Balance and a rapper named Aminé. And they're literally like brown and yellow and they have neon pink. I know it sounds really gross with me describing it, but they're really, really, they're it's like banana flavor boo boo with like sprinkles. No, but like they're really cute shoes. But
Uh-huh.
even after my purchasing them, I'm like, I would have never bought these before. Um,
Mhm.
but my thing is as a stylist, And as a person, I always appreciate and love when someone has their own style and they're confident in it. I don't have to like it, but I
Mhm.
like when it's you. And I think that's what's most important for me. I tell everyone, like, a lot of times in moments we're doing something or being something and it's not landing or it's not catching. Because I always use the example of people say, they tell a joke and they say, "Oh, you didn't
Yeah.
laugh," and you're like, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "It was a joke." And you're like, "I know it wasn't funny." It's like, "Oh, I was trying to be funny, but you know why I didn't land? Because you're not funny." Well, that's not how. No, but no shade. Like, you know what I mean? Or like you're not funny. And I tell people like, you know what I'm saying now? So it's like, stop trying to be something and just be. Just be
Oh
you. Like,
Lord.
be you. You know what I mean? Like, I tell people, like, if you have an issue with me, like, take it up with God. Like, He did it. Like, there's nothing wrong with me or you. It just because it's not right for somebody else don't mean it's not right.
Mhm.
So,
Now,
I
I want to follow up on something with you though,
sure.
because when you mentioned Dominique, and Dominique was always about the fashion, and she's like known, and you see her, that's what you see. When you and her had that conversation, was there anything about that conversation that landed that made you think about not only where you were in the present, but where you want to go in the future and what you're doing to change some things?
Oh, for sure. Like, she changed my whole perspective on, like, my wardrobe. Like,
Mhm,
because it's like, I would say before that, I was just more so concerned about, to your point, what was kind of going on in that moment.
mhm,
And what was trendy and what other people, what everyone liked.
mhm,
Because I feel like it's almost like music now. It's like, back in the day, I tell people, back in the day, Gladys Knight and even the Marvelettes and all of those, what made them so famous and so popular was because it was something it was unique. They weren't trying to translate a sound of the time. They weren't trying to do what everyone liked. They were literally creating or doing something new.
mhm,
And they were earnest in that. You know what I mean? And so I feel like what Tyra Dominique gave me in that moment was like, you need to have certain basics and you really need to have something, a foundation to build on. And I think, like, that's what she really taught me. And then it kind of just really dumbed down how I dress. Like, I used to wear a lot of graphics and brands and all that stuff. And I tell people, if I had to describe my style, it's very simple with accents. There's always generally something that I want you to focus on. Because she was like, well, if you wearing this and you wearing that and you wearing this, it may all be really beautiful and all really nice, but I don't know what the hell to look at.
mhm,
Or I can't focus on anything because it's just so much. I'm turned off because it's just so much going on.
mhm,
So I think she definitely, gave me the perspective of, don't think about what you're buying for right now or this season.
mhm,
Can you or would you want to wear this 5 years from now, 6 years from now?
mhm.
So I would say she definitely, like, in that way, really just changed my whole perspective on fashion and personal style, and how I look at it in general.
Okay. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in the fashion industry?
Um, to be very honest, I would say that working in fashion, working in entertainment, um, though it may exist in a lot of areas or places, I would say the validity of it and the respect for it as a real profession is not the same. I would say in Atlanta, and my personal experiences in the past, I did a music video where I was doing 14-hour days. Shaka had lent me some fashion and some accessories. I had got some stuff from other people. Um, those people lost jewelry of Shaka's. The woman threatened to take me to court and didn't pay me for anything. I never got steals or anything from that music video. Um, but you live and you learn. And yes, she was black. Not that anyone asked, but she was. So that happened. And I would say, like, whereas in New York, just in general, people are, because of I would say, I guess, the vastness of the fashion industry or the seriousness of it in that city.
Mhm,
People respect your talent when they see your talent. Like I got requested a couple times to hit up to do and got booked by photographers to do like model shoots for agencies that they had to do shoots for. Like that never happened to me in Atlanta. Um, or it's easier for me to do a shoot with somebody in New York than it is for me to do it in Atlanta. Um, so I would just say like that's something that I've learned. And one thing Shaka told me when I first started was like, whatever your brand is, like stick to that. So if what you do is editorial and high fashion, then do editorial and high fashion. It's not about taking or doing every job or every shoot. Because what happens is you start doing let's say all these urban wear shoots, and then you want to go for this editorial shoot or this show, and they say, "Oh, well, we never seen you do that, or all we ever seen you do is urban wear."
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's about really being true to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, and knowing what it is that you want to do in your brand. And I can also just say from conversations with friends while I was in New York, I can say also in watching people's journey, like my friend Andre Rose, who is a really, 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 really dope stylist, fashion designer. I met Andre years ago, like when he was kind of first starting out, and I knew when I met him, like he was going to be amazing. And that he had something special. And I say that to say, like, without going into specifics of anything, when you really, like I said, when you really believe in someone, when you really want someone not just to win, but you want them to be the person that they want to be and that they should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about doing something with an expectation or an intention. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about? I didn't do anything or say anything now or then with the expectation of you running me money back or you anything for me. I did it because I really believed in you. And I've always told him, like, I'm just glad that you didn't give up on yourself so that you were able to fully actualize and realize this life and this, you know what I mean, doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like Shaka says, just not chasing money because it's an endless race.
Mm-hmm.
You'll run yourself tired and ragged, Chad. So I think it's also again just you know I had people telling me years ago to maybe start trying to do things to monetize black kimchi or directions to take it, and um, even my mother has jokingly said, you need to get a cheaper hobby, um, because I do these shoots and they're just like I said, they're just for me to express, and I spend a few $100s on these shoots. Um, But it's what I love, and it's what fills me. It helps me feel, good. So yeah. But I would definitely say just not giving up on yourself and having paperwork, contracts, promissory notes, legal agreements, like for yourself. And at the end of the day, I tell people friendship, personal connections or not, business is business, and no one who's legitimate or valid is going to feel a way about doing something that's a legitimate business transaction or ask. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just what that is. So I think that's the thing too. It's like if you really want to do something, um, take the time and have enough respect for yourself to make sure that you're informed and educated about what you're going into and what you're doing. Because passion is not enough. Passion is not going to pay your bills. Passion is not going to keep you employed or get you gigs. So, yeah.
So, how do you balance creativity and commercial viability in your design?
Um, I would say that I think frequency, like I think if I created more, I think I
Mm-hmm.
could probably have much more commercial appeal. Like when I do post, I generally get good response. And I know that what I do is unique to me. So I do know that just in general, like the content I create, from an aesthetic and an artistic perspective is interesting because it's interesting, if that makes sense. Not to say that it's complex or the most whatever, um, but it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've had things like when I was in New York a couple times, there was a clothing brand, Profound Aesthetic, that I was wearing a lot. And I literally had the the lead designer, the lead stylist, and I think like the creative director following me,
Mm-hmm.
and liking my pictures. But I couldn't get them to have a conversation with me to discuss anything. or a couple photos I've done this year with a brand called Daily Paper, and like their owner and designer follows me, likes my pictures, and we kind of interact back and forth. So I think if I created more frequently, but again, that's just kind of a result of just my creative process.
Mhm.
And I think maybe if I wasn't working a 9 to 5, I could create more consistently because my brain wouldn't be somewhere else. But again, that's something I'm hoping to change going into next year and just kind of really trying to invest in general more in that part of it. But I definitely think in having commercial appeal, you just have to be consistent because everything moves so fast now.
Mhm.
And I tell people it's not that people don't have long attention spans because people follow and track what they want to. I think we know that as people because we follow and track what we want to.
Mhm.
I think the hard thing or what's difficult is keeping people's interest, being entertaining, whatever, however you want to qualify or connotate that in a moment. And that's where I kind of get back to for me, just being true to myself. Like, do I have a ton of followers? No. But that's not why I do what I do either. And I think having relative and actual perspective on even that aspect of social media, you can buy followers, you can have tons of bots following you. So
Mhm.
volume is not necessarily any correlation to quality or interest or any. It has no real relevance anymore.
Mhm.
Due to the way you can inflate those things, kind of falsely or mechanically. So. I would just say, as far as commercial appeal, if that's what you're wanting to do, you would first have to have a brand because I've had like a lot of friends and associates in the past who had great clothing lines, great concepts, um, but you're not business oriented. And I tell people all the time, even in working in state government, there is a social service aspect to that industry, but it is also a business aspect to it. And that is a specified skill set. And so, I think there's a conflict a lot of times with that part of it too. People are great creative people, but they don't have any type of business acumen, and that's why it doesn't end up equaling or balancing out.
Let's move down to your community work. Can you tell us what inspired you to get involved in community work?
Well, like my mom when I was little, like we used to go to the Jose Feed the Homeless. Even in school, like I volunteered at the like nursing homes. My mother has always done like the Jewish Aid House and things like that. So I think in general, it's important just to give back, um, even if it's not in some type of direct, tangible way. You don't have to necessarily collect cans or go volunteer somewhere, but even within your own community, your own tribe, your own family, are you pouring into people? Are you sharing information with people? Are you open? Are you aware? Are you present and actively engaged? And I think that um, I am an only child.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of friends. Most of my friends ironically come from very large families. And I think having that family dynamic and having a certain closeness to my mom and my dad,
Mhm.
that my appreciation, and I mean that from a financial perspective, is much higher in people than the average person. I always tell people I wish I had somebody love me like men love the gym.
Mhm.
Like somebody that go to the gym, they'll beat themselves up. They will go work out twice as many times the next day. They're gonna and there's a genuine, physically tangible sentiment, right, of anger and disappointment with themselves and regret.
Mhm.
But then they don't call their mama, their grandmama, and they're like, I'll call her tomorrow. How you know she got tomorrow?
Mhm.
And it's just the imbalance in that. And I've always told, I've always tried to learn through other people's living. So I've
Mhm.
always been very observant in my mom and my elders and even my peers. And it's like all things in life depreciate instantly.
Mhm.
Clothing, food, cars, houses, right? And over time. But relationships don't, right?
Mm.
If you and I are friends, the longer we're friends, the more we're going to invest, the stronger it comes, the more valuable it
Mhm.
becomes, right? The more. So, and when I don't have those things, it's not things that help me require those things, it's people, right? So I think it's just, and having seen certain people reach certain points in their life as elders, um, I've taken the perspective that as we get older, we become left with and surrounded by the things that we loved and we invested in. So did you invest in your cars and your money and your houses and your clothes? And yet you wonder why nobody's here.
Mm,
You wonder why nobody answers your calls. You wonder why nobody is checking for you. And it's like, but is that something you invested in? Was
mhm,
that something that you gave to? Was that something that you fed or you nurtured? Um, and so for me, you know, I don't want to be remembered when I leave or when I'm gone from this earth because memories can be forgotten and they fade.
mhm,
Um, but I would like to hopefully having imprinted or given or said something or taught someone something or shared something with someone that will live on through them and their children and their family and through being shared. Um, and just trying to, have a life of purpose by being purposeful in my living.
mhm,
So, for me, community is just a reminder that I am these people. We are all people, and I'm no different, no better than them. And having and working in state government, and having a certain personal spiritual perspective, I feel a very serious obligation to serve and to have acknowledgement that at the end of the day, all y'all's taxes literally from my check. So
mm,
I have a sense of duty to everyone. Every day I show up at my job, regardless of how I feel about my job or whatever the case is. So being active in the community from just a social perspective, from a physical perspective of actual volunteering things, it's just very important because at the end of the day, we all need help.
mhm.
It takes two people to make us and a team of people to bring us into this world. So I think that we can make it through life by ourselves, to me, is just a foolish lie.
So, can you tell us, are there any community initiatives that you're involved in at this moment?
Not at this moment. To be very transparent, I've had a very precarious year
Mhm,
of personal things going on, and as my mother will often say, if you're going to go somewhere and do something, you should do there and be there with a smile and because you want to.
mhm,
And I have not been in a place to be there for myself,
mhm,
um, and or be myself as I would like to or need to be for myself. So right now, and as I was telling you, transitioning into next year, I'm just trying to make some very purposeful, intentional changes in my personal life, my personal person, to be able to be more and do more for others, um, and with others. It's definitely a thing that I'm kind of working towards and trying to make some active changes to do.
Okay, well, that's actually good, and I mean, I think that intention and purpose and some of the things you've done. I mean, the impact is still going to be there.
Mhm,
So it's not about a beat up thing, but it's like you are actually reaching back out to the community, which is the main thing, because
mhm,
that's something that don't care who you are, where we are. That if we forget those things and we don't actually do things to continue to build where we live, there's some things that I'm sure that's gonna come back in the back of the mind that's gonna haunt some people that have not done that because
mhm,
communities raise people.
mhm.
Can you just tell us this then? Um, how do you identify the needs of the community and and address them, or what are your plans to address those needs that you see?
A lot of what I have been doing, kind of recently, or like in the most recent past, is really like simply because I work. I'm not going to say what agency, but because I do work for a state agency,
Mhm,
that does have correlation directly to or impact or affect people's lives. I really try to take things that I hear literally on the news, that I hear my friends, my single moms out there
mhm,
going through, and that people talk about, and I try to effectuate that in some way at my job. Um, and also ensuring that what we do, as I tell them all the time, like what we do literally and actually affects and impacts people's lives. It is serious. This is real. These are not cases. These are not application numbers. This is people's chemo. This is their dialysis. This is their child's food supply for the month.
mhm,
So a lot of it recently has just trying to make sure that the entity that I work for is responsive in a way that is actual and that is impactful, because that is why we are there and that is our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
and that every day that we are showing up to work within and for an entity that is there to serve others and trying to serve ourselves or someone else, we are failing everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Really good answer. I love that because that in itself, that's impactful. Whether whether you know it or not, or if you can see it, but that's impactful because that means a whole lot. And there are lots of people in communities right now that are fearful, shameful of asking for help, don't know how to ask for help, and nobody's actually stepping up to make this right for them.
Mhm.
What impact do you hope to achieve through your community work?
I guess in general, I just want people to know that they're seen and that they matter, and that they are heard. I think a lot of times we as people, I have a lot of sayings, but one of my sayings is, the ability to validate something doesn't make it valid. So just because you can explain it or it makes sense doesn't mean that it's appropriate or that it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said that to say, I can come up with a lot of reasons as to why we shouldn't be giving this money to these people, or why we shouldn't be initiating this program, or why we can't do this, or why it's okay to be late on that. Right. But at the end of the day, why do you feel, or I tell people, why do you feel that you have to experience something or be in a position to be able to not allow someone else to experience that grief or that harm?
Mm.
Have you really gone so high up on the hill that your perspective has actually become skewed? And somehow you feel you are better than or not amongst these people.
Oh wow, that's deep.
And so for me, it is about, like I tell people, there are certain industries, jobs, positions and places in people's personal lives that you should not occupy, seek, or desire to have because you are unfit and unqualified.
Mm-hmm.
Because your seed is not a good seed. And as my big mama said, bad seeds don't grow, they don't even rot. They
Mm-hmm.
just sit on the ground. No matter how much water, that's what she said. No matter how much water, sunlight, you can sing to it all you want to. That's the thing about a bad seed. She said, if you're a good seed, baby, you can always grow.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you how fast and how much you can always grow. And so I think, for me, it is about I've for my own reasons have, sought to leave government work at different times in my short tenure there. And I'm still there. And like I tell my mom, I've gotten to a point in life where I try to have acceptance without understanding, because understanding is a personal want and desire. And while I'm wasting time and effort and attention trying to understand something, I'm not being present and I'm not getting whatever I'm supposed to be getting in that moment because I'm trying to understand it so I can then accept it. And then I ain't got time for all
Mm-hmm.
that. So, it's just about trying to be present. And again, if we are there for a purpose and we are here to serve other people, then let us serve and let us do what we're here to do, because someone else's life shouldn't be affected because I'm having a bad day, because I didn't have to take this job. I
Exactly.
didn't have to be here.
Exactly. How do you engage and motivate others to participate in community initiatives?
I always try to find things that I feel people care about, or things that they love. For example, I'm a news junkie.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of friends, personal friends, who don't care, they're not interested, it don't affect my life. Um, currently we have the election coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I always am very big on motivating my friends. And I don't go to the whole like, oh, Harriet Tubman walked 5,000 miles and saved 23 slaves. Like, I don't do all that. I mean, I don't. But, but, but I do come from a place of like, if you're not going to vote, if you feel like your vote doesn't matter, then vote for your child.
Okay.
Vote for them, because there'll come a time where they'll be here and you won't. So make sure that while you're here, what you do is relates to your child in all aspects and facets of your life, that it matters and that it's purposeful. So I always try to find something that they relate to, and just respecting. Like as I've gotten older, I might not like or even accept what you may do or what your choice is, but guess what? That's your right and that's your choice. So I
Exactly.
feel a lot of times, we have to just understand just because people may disagree or even have discontent with what we say, it doesn't mean they don't agree with us, actually. It doesn't mean that that we're not right. They just don't want to hear that right there. Or
Hmm.
that ain't the time, or they're not at a place in their person or their life to receive that or accept that. So,
Hmm.
for me too, it's always about touching and checking back. Touching and checking back, consistency in everything in life. But you just try to motivate people by telling them the importance and the relevance to their life. Um, and understanding that some people just they're not gonna care. Some people are not gonna get it. Some people are just not that's not what their interest is, and that's okay. I think that's the thing too, like beating somebody down is not gonna make them more apt or more willing to agree with you or join you than respecting their choice and what their decision is.
Right. Let's pivot to your consulting.
Mhm.
So, what motivated you initially to start consulting?
So I've always kind of done it just freelance. I ain't never really charged nobody because I've done it for like friends.
Mhm.
Um, but I enjoy it. Again, it's one of those things that I do just to get a relief from work.
Mhm.
I'm a very conceptual person. I always have ideas popping in my head. I thankfully, gratefully have been able to do things like corporate America and be very successful and excel. But I also have done creative things and been very successful. So a lot of times it's just been kind of providing a service or a skill set to my friends that they don't have because they know that's not what they do, what they're interested in.
Mhm.
But that's really been a lot of it. Sometimes it's been kind of very limited because I'm sure as you understand when you do have kind of personal relationship with someone or you are not on just a professional level with people or your friends,
Mhm.
there compensation comes up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and people, and I just want to say this for everyone in the room, everyone's for the collective, those of y'all in the back and some that scooted to the front, that it's not just about money.
Mhm.
Financial compensation is about acknowledgement and respect of someone's time, their person, and whatever reason that you have or want them there. And so been the thing about it for me a lot of times with people like they're very talented. There's a lot of potential or promise in something. But again, I can't pay bills with God's grace and mercy. I can't pay bills with promises or friendship. So I think that's been a lot of it has just kind of been, friendly, social. People call me for opinions a lot of times on things just because.
Mhm.
So it's been more like freelance, whatever. I haven't really tried to get into it too heavy outside of that and assisting people with like projects or work efforts or businesses on the side.
Okay. Well, let's move back to the initial our initial start of the conversation about fashion. Um, can you discuss a project or collection that you are particularly proud of?
I would probably say a project I'm most proud of was probably I would say the last photo shoot that I did, my personal shoot, with Prime.
Mhm.
It was my first kind of what I would call like a beauty shoot. Most of what I do is it's a look, it's a concept, it's a studio thing. Um, this shoot was basically kind of a waist up, neck up
Mhm.
type of thing. When I got to the studio, I had an idea, like I told you in my head, of what I want to do. I had about this really, really, really pretty piece of fabric.
Mhm.
Um, but apparently I didn't really have the skill set to do what I had wanted to do. So I had went there and did a little thing, a little 1, 2, 3.
Uh-huh.
But it came together really, really well. And so it was something I was proud of because it was when I look even now when I look back at the shoot and I look at the photos, it's just to me it's a beautiful the photos are beautiful.
Mhm.
Um and I feel something from it. And so it was just kind of I think 'cause it's the last thing I've done, and given that as far as Black kimchi and professional shoots, I'm probably now about maybe 3 or 4 years really heavy into it.
Mhm.
Um, to look at that shoot and just really see the progress, um, and just what I'm doing now and how it's coming out. Um, and also just kind of those moments where you plan to do something and they don't quite happen the way you wanted to, but it come out, you go, oh, you know what, this actually wasn't that bad then. Um, so yeah, it was kind of one of those moments too. It's like, give yourself some grace because it wasn't what you wanted or thought it was going to be, but it really ended up being something really dope. And it's probably one of the shoots that I've done that I just got a lot of personal, like a lot of direct feedback. People like, oh, we really, really like, oh, this is really cool, blah, blah, blah. So that's the thing. I'll say that one. It was called Not Tiffany's. What's the title of the shoot? I came up all of my titles for my shoots are kind of conceptual, but I came up with it because I end up having like this big piece of like cream organza, and I always pearls have become a common thing for me, but I had like a lot of my mom's pearls, and the background that we used was kind of that blue green Tiffany color.
Okay.
But it was not Tiffany's, so that's where I came up with the title for the shoot. But I would say that project was probably one of the things I'm most proud of because, like I said, I showed up on set, shoot was paid for, photographer was there, we were supposed to be shooting, and I was in the bathroom trying to Project Runway and just was not running or weighing. But it came out really, really, really well. So that was probably one of them. It's actually the biggest shoot I did. I think I paid the most. I think that's the most photos I've ever done, which was like maybe 20 or 30 edited photos,
Oh
which is a
wow.
lot of edits,
That is. Oh
which are
my god.
expensive. But
Ooh.
that's just how good the shoot was. I literally paid for that many edits. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, ooh, I may have to find out who that is. Um, let me ask you this because this is on my mind. I was intending on asking you this question earlier. When you sent your two headshots, right? The one we decided to use was the one with you in the blue,
Mhm.
and that's the one we used to promote your show. Can you tell me what was the inspiration behind that outfit? Because it in itself is so abstract, but it says so many things. What was
Mhm.
the inspiration behind that photo?
I love that picture because that picture to me, it's something very black about that picture. I don't know if it's the hat
Hmm.
or what, but it's something very ancestral to me in that picture. But
Okay.
that picture is actually from a shoot. Um, that ironically was an ode to Shaka.
Hmm.
That my friend Saline actually styled and photographed. I had told Saline that I wanted to do that type of shoot. That I wanted to, in some fashion way, pay homage and honor to Shaka as my mentor. And I had recently gotten a bunch of like samples and clothes from him.
Hmm.
And so literally, we scheduled a day. I went to Salim's apartment, maybe 7, 8 that morning in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
We had some pretzel sticks from Trader Joe's, had some tea. um, and I literally spread the clothes out on his bed. It's the first time he's seen any of the clothes.
Uh-huh.
And he literally styled and photographed me in his apartment with a click camera.
Hmm.
The photo is totally unedited. All the photos are unedited.
Hmm.
Um, I had no makeup or anything, and it was just that's where that photo came from. It was kind of an ode to Shaka, and it was a shoe that was styled and photographed by one of my stylist friends in his apartment.
Can you tell me something? Is that a dress, a jacket? What is that? Because it looks like it's backwards.
So it is. It's actually a denim coat that I have from Shaka that he put on me backwards.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm, it's a
Okay.
denim coat. I actually still have the coat. 'Cause
Really?
yeah, actually, any photo shoot that I have ever done that you see me in, I am wearing clothes from my wardrobe. Those are my clothes. These are not clothes that I am pulling for a shoot or that I purchased for a shoot. I literally style myself in my wardrobe. So that's another kind of thing that's, I guess, unique about my shoots. But yeah,
So
it's a denim coat that I have with like frayed fringes. Yeah.
for those of you that want to know exactly what photo I'm talking about, on all of our social media posts, and when we promoted this show, you'll see Chad is dressed up in this nice big blue hat, and it's like he says it's a jacket that's turned backwards, but
Mhm.
it's very unique in the way it's done, and the
Mhm.
picture itself is just so it's so all about what's the questions. There's several questions to ask about it because it just it's giving you all of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really like that. I like that picture. And when you sent those over, I just wanted to when I looked at the two, now the second one, I will tell you that, in and itself now, that I was just like, oh, he's just being a hot mess. Okay. You're giving all this color on your face, and it's the way that you were giving the profile, getting all
Mhm.
on this side right here. What was going on with that?
So that was actually from the Not Tiffany shoot. Um, it was just about again, it was about like a beauty glam shoot. It was just more conceptual.
Mhm.
Um, the idea around it was kind of just like not me being jewelry, so to speak, but just kind of being adorned. And again, like the pearls are not real pearls. The coloring is actually hair putty that I used that could wash out and body glitter.
Mhm.
The piece of fabric was a piece of fabric I bought from Hobby Lobby.
Mhm.
But just again, to show people like real creativity, real art is not based in money.
Right.
It's really based in concept and way to kind of effectuate it. So that was that picture.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I want to give you something kind of like
Mhm.
sublime artsy, which was like that picture, and then I want to give you like a fashion picture. So that's why I sent that picture.
Well,
Mhm.
they're both nice, but the one in the blue stood out the most, and I just
Mhm.
make sure I ask you about that because now I'm like, you just giving all the life in that though.
Thank you.
Does You should keep that as a main photo, whatever you do as far as your portfolio.
Thank you.
Yes. Um, can you tell us how do you incorporate sustainability into your fashion designs?
So again, with me, like I style out of my closet. Even when I used to like professionally style, when I would go and like pull shoes from stores or things like that, you just learn tricks of the trade, like putting tape on the bottom so you don't scuff the shoes. And just taking care of things. I think also a lot of times people feel like they have to they have to have a certain type of garment to create a certain type of look. And I always tell people like, what are you trying to kind of present or evoke and focus on that? Because a lot of times people are trying to use a certain garment or a certain piece of clothing. It's like, what is the picture about? So I would say for me, it's more so about utilizing what I already have. And then even with like with the silver hair color that I used in that's hair putty that I had from a shoot 3 or 4 years ago.
Mhm.
So it's also just about repurposing things, reutilizing things. I do think, not to say anything about anyone and saying anything, but I do think that you have to have a certain amount of creativity to to repurpose things. Because I think a lot of people they don't reutilize things because of the apparent redundancy. Because they don't, you can take something and present it a different way and literally get a different look or a different image or output,
Mhm.
but you have to know how to utilize that in that way. So that's what I try to do is just get the bang for my buck because again my money when I'm doing shoots is I'm trying to spend it on the photographer and on edits.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so I definitely agree with you about the repurposing. And if you're not creative, in that sense, a lot of people are not going to be able to pull that off because not everybody can do that. But like in your case, like as you say, as you talk about using the hair putty from 2 years ago, like in doing that particular shoot, what is it about that hair putty that made you decide that you wanted to use it?
So I knew I wanted my hair to be silver for whatever reason. And so I have friends that are like cosmetologists. Kiss My Spaz, who's a person on social media on Instagram. He's really, really young, amazing.
Mhm.
Community involved, fashion involved, younger guy, but his thing is hair color. And we have a pretty good rapport via social media. So I reached out to him about some options. And I sit on the hair putty one because it wasn't expensive, two because it seemed to be able, from what I read about it, it seemed to be able to be functional for what I needed, but it wasn't complicated.
Mhm.
Because the thing for me, speaking of sustainability, is like I do everything on my shoots except for the photos. Anything done in my hair, my face, makeup, I do it. Clothing, styling, concept, environment. Uh, I try to just cut down on all of that. Tried and it worked. So I stuck with it because like I didn't want to do actual coloring and put some in my hair potentially like that. And I didn't want to do like sprays because it's aerosol and inhale and stuff. So it just seemed to be the easiest and the most functional. So
Okay.
research and trial and error, because that's the thing I had to do a lot of times too, because I'm kind of doing it by myself, or I'm not, I'm not sure about everything because it's not necessarily my forte because I don't do makeup in here.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do try to dabble in those things, I have to kind of try to make sure it's something I can do depending on what I'm trying to do aesthetically, and then find a way where again I can do it myself. Like a couple of times I've had my mom on set to like help me take things off or put things on because I don't need stuff to get wet or whatever the case is. But again, a lot of it is driven by me being able to kind of be self sufficient in doing my photo shoots.
So, what role does technology play in your fashion career?
None at all. None at all right now. And I say that because I do Instagram is like the only real social media that I have. And that's because my content is photographs, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I was saying like I want to start next year getting more into branching out into video. I did do actually a short kind of audio series
Mm-hmm.
of poems that I had written like a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I want to incorporate kind of more into not necessarily maybe my content, but at least my distribution or my presentation of my content. Um, it's something a lot of my friends, obviously, because they are full-time creatives, they've gotten like my homegirl Kristen is doing like these really cool reels with all of like this video intermingling and stuff. Um, but it's not my judge, and I'm kind of a person a lot of times too, like I don't want to know how to do everything and I don't want to do everything. So I like to just do what I do. But as it relates to social media, you kind of have to learn how to do certain things for yourself. So that's
Yes,
kind of
sir.
part of, yeah. So that's kind of part, that's part of kind of what the growth and development of the brand will be next year. Is me really doing a lot more experimentation, I guess you could say, with those type of things.
Okay.
Mhm.
How do you approach the process of designing a new collection?
So I don't fabricate because I would hate to learn how to sew, and I'm not patient in that way. But I would say like in working with Shaka and doing collections,
Mhm.
um, a lot of times he would maybe sometimes we'd be in the studio and he'd be maybe fabricating, and he may have something like something up on a mannequin, and I might be like, oh, like that would be cool, little so and so and so and so, or oh, like what you gonna this and this, or you gonna put it on that way, and he would literally be like, oh, well, I wasn't thinking about that, but let me see what that looks like. Or sometimes he may just, I may just see something and have an idea and throw it out there. So I would just say as it relates to that, a lot of it is really organic. Um, and working with Shaka, he generally has a very clear concept of where he's going, but he's always been very open to opinion.
Right.
Um, because I know he's always told me like, not even from a learning perspective, but sometimes he's like, he knows just being in head down into doing his business. Sometimes he may just get locked into a certain perspective, or only be able to see something one way. So that's how we would work a lot of times. It's like he may send me something or ask me an opinion, or I may just see a picture. 'Cause sometimes he'll post things online like while he's working on them. And I may see somebody, oh, you making that into a so and so? Are you on this with the arm? And he's like, no, well, let me try to see how that works. So I would say it's really just a process of trust,
Mhm.
respect, and communication.
Wow. Well,
Mhm,
he sounds very, very creative
mhm.
because in adjusting like that on the fly and maybe just adding something to see what it looks like and then having the ability to take it back, that is really cool. How long has he been sewing?
I would say, I mean, I don't know Charlotte's exact age, but I would say he's probably been, I would say at least, between maybe 20, 30 years. I know part of his clothing, his brand recently is sustainability. He reuses a lot of scraps. I know like a lot of his jewelry, he uses like refurbished coins and things that he finds. Um, he's just a really cool person. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Shaka. I think he's very overtly humble
Mhm.
for just the success that he has had in an industry that is not pro black, that is not pro gay, that is. very commercial and mainstream, and generally makes it hard for people who are independent designers, but not like a Brandon Blackwood or a Telfar, and not in a major retailer to be sustainable with all the competition just for clothing. So the fact that he's had, clients like Blair Underwood, and other people and done fashion shows all over the world and things like that. I think it's just really amazing, to be very honest. So, yeah.
So, what advice would you give to aspiring fashion designers?
Um, know who you are. I would say also, the question that I always got asked anywhere in New York was, "What do you do?" And they weren't asking what your profession was. They were asking, "What do you do? Do you?" Because like I met this lady, she literally was like a big time person at NBC, and like she was like, "Oh, I do photography." I'm like, no, you make 6, 7 figures a year, man. Um, and it's not a joke. Um, but you know what I mean? So like I would also like, what do you do? Salem used to always say you need to be able to tell somebody or explain or express what your brand or your perspective is within 20 to 30 seconds. Like you ever ask somebody like, say I'm a stylist, and they say, "Oh, so describe your style." And
That's
like,
an
"Oh well, it's kinda, oh well, and the cat touched the mouse and the mouse ate the cheese." And so I think being, again, knowing who you are, being able to clearly express and explain who you are. And I would just say again, understanding that the easiest way to be unique and to stand out is to be yourself.
Mhm.
Trying to be something, being a version of someone else, it's not going to make you stand out. And I would just say, for me, having had interactions with certain people, still having certain relationships with certain people, in my own personal opinion, this is where it's at, people. Styling your cousin or your sister line on Instagram does not make you a stylist. Doing the Easter church fashion show every year at Mount Zion does not make you a stylist. Okay. Doing your mama every Saturday, okay, or Sunday for pastor anniversary does not make you a stylist. You need to have legitimate printed credits. You need to have things that you can point to. And using social media, like, do things is free.
Mhm.
So I think also, just as it relates to creative things, expressing yourself, fashion things specifically, you don't need money for that. I still post photos all the time. They may not be from professional shoots, but you have a camera, you have clothing. So I also would say that if you have real talent, or as Shaka told me one day, like, you said that you're so great, so like, why are you doubting yourself? What's the problem?
Mm.
I'm confused.
Okay.
So I think, also just allowing your work to speak for you and being true to yourself and your brand.
Well, so with that being said, are there any parting words you like for our audience to know? Any inspirations, motivations, things of that nature that you want them to know, or something you want them to know about you?
I would just leave everyone with my mantra, which is just love yourself enough to love yourself.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for spending some time with us and watching Mr. Chad Ross. Mr. Ross, I appreciate you for being here. It was a great experience, and it's definitely something that I definitely hope that we can make this happen again. For
Most
those
definitely.
for those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, please hit the subscriptions button as well as the notifications so you'll be able to watch the show, even the shows that you miss, and you can watch them at any time. We definitely appreciate all of the support that you guys give us. I'd like to again thank Mr. Chad Ross. And for those of you out there watching, for spending some time with us. And I hope you enjoyed, and we hope to see you guys again tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern as we have another great show that's catering to the things that inspire and build our communities. Thank you again, Mr. Ross, and we will see you guys tomorrow. You all have a great evening.